There comes a time in every life when the weight of this world becomes too much. A moment when the path disappears beneath your feet, when people you trusted walk away, when dreams you built collapse like sandcastles under a rising tide. You stand there, heart heavy, hands empty, and wonder why. But what if this wasn't your ending? What if it was your beginning? In Buddhism, suffering is not a mistake. It is not a punishment. It is a sacred messenger, a quiet guide leading you back to truth. As the Buddha once said, pain is certain, suffering is optional. Just as a lotus rises unsoiled from muddy waters, so too can we rise from sorrow, pure, aware, and awakened. Today, I'll share 7 powerful lessons from Buddhist wisdom to help you realize that life didn't break you to destroy you, but to awaken you, because sometimes what shatters you is what truly saves you. 1. The break is the start of seeing clearly. Most people live their lives behind an invisible curtain, caught up in a race they never questioned. We chase things like approval, recognition, material success, and emotional comfort, thinking that if we just have these things, we'll finally be happy. But the truth is, many of these things only give us temporary relief. They distract us from deeper questions. They make us feel busy, but not fulfilled. We start to believe that our worth is tied to what we own, how others see us, or how smoothly life goes. That's the illusion. Then suddenly, life breaks something you thought would always be there. Maybe someone you love walks away. Maybe a dream you've worked on for years collapses. Maybe an unexpected tragedy shakes the ground beneath your feet. In those moments, it feels like your whole world is falling apart. But something else is happening too. Something quieter, deeper, and more important. The illusion starts to crack. You begin to notice what you couldn't see before. You start to realize that some of the things you depended on were never really stable. Maybe the job wasn't your true passion. Maybe the relationship was built on fear, not love. Maybe the identity you clung to was never really yours. Pain strips away what is false. It clears away the fog. It forces you to stop and ask, what is actually real in my life? This kind of breaking hurts deeply, but it is also a beginning, because once the surface shatters, the truth underneath can finally come to light. You begin to see how much of your life was shaped by fear, by habits, by trying to please others. You begin to see what really matters, and that painful clarity becomes your first step toward a more honest, awake, and peaceful life. 2. Pain is a doorway, not a life sentence. When pain enters your life, it often feels like a wall, solid, cold, and impossible to get past. You might feel trapped inside your suffering, as if you've been thrown into a prison with no key and no way out. But Buddhist wisdom teaches us something radically different. It tells us that pain is not a wall, it's a doorway, a passage, a teacher in disguise. Suffering, in Buddhism, is not the end of your peace. It's the path to it. The first noble truth teaches that suffering exists in every life. But the purpose of that truth is not to make you hopeless. It's to help you stop running. Because as long as you see pain as something to escape from, you will never stop being afraid. But when you begin to see your pain as a teacher, your entire relationship with it changes. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you begin to ask, "What is this here to teach me?" That single shift opens the door. When life breaks you, you're not being punished, you're being invited to go deeper, to stop living on the surface, to step away from the noise of the world and listen to the quiet truth inside you. The pain is pointing somewhere. It is asking you to examine your attachments, to look at what you've been clinging to, whether it's people, expectations, control, or old versions of yourself. This doesn't mean that the suffering itself is easy. It doesn't mean you have to like it, but it does mean you no longer have to fight it. Instead of resisting, you can begin to observe. You can sit with it, breathe with it, and in doing so, you start to see that the pain has edges, that it rises and falls, that it does not last forever. When you treat your suffering as a path instead of a prison, something beautiful happens. Your pain transforms. What once felt like punishment begins to feel like guidance. What once seemed like a curse begins to reveal itself as a gift. You are not stuck. You are not doomed to carry this forever. You are walking through something, not into it. And on the other side of that doorway is clarity, healing, and a version of you who sees life more deeply than ever before. 3. What you lost was never meant to stay forever. When life takes something or someone away from you, the pain can feel unbearable. You may feel abandoned, betrayed, or even punished. Your heart holds on tightly, clinging to the memory, the attachment, the way things used to be. You replay old moments in your mind and wonder why it all had to change. But Buddhism reminds us of a deep truth that is hard to accept in the middle of grief. Nothing lasts forever. This principle is called anicca, or impermanence. Everything in this world, our possessions, our relationships, our titles, our bodies, is temporary. Everything is constantly changing, whether we notice it or not. And yet, we often live as if the things we love will stay the same forever. We make plans, we build dreams, we form attachments, and then life, in its quiet wisdom, reminds us that all things are borrowed. That relationship you lost, it may have taught you what love is. That job you were forced to leave, it may have led you closer to your real purpose. That friend who walked away may have cleared space for someone who truly sees you. When you hold on to what's gone, you suffer twice, once from the loss, and again from the refusal to let it go. Letting go does not mean forgetting. It does not mean erasing the past. It means accepting that the past cannot be brought back, and that your peace depends on loosening your grip. When something falls away from your life, it is not always because you failed. Sometimes it is because you are being guided to something better, or to someone you've neglected for too long, yourself. Buddhist wisdom teaches us to observe life as it is, not as we wish it to be. Just like the leaves fall in autumn, just like the river flows and never holds on to one spot, everything in life moves. What comes must go. What rises must fall. But in that flow, there is beauty. In that release, there is freedom. When you realize that what you lost was never truly yours to keep, you stop clinging. And in that space, something new begins. A deeper peace, a wiser heart, a quieter mind. You stop asking, "Why did life take this from me?" and instead whisper, "Thank you for showing me I was holding too tightly." And just like that, your healing begins. For stillness is born in the fall. There are moments when life knocks you to your knees so hard, you don't even have the strength to get back up. Everything feels heavy. You try to move, to fix things, to go back to how they were, but nothing works. The people you once turned to are no longer there. The plans you carefully made no longer make sense. And for the first time, you're forced to stop. Not because you want to, but because you have no choice. This is what Buddhists understand as a sacred pause, a deep silence that follows collapse. At first it feels empty, like the air has been sucked out of the room. You might call it hopelessness. But in truth, this stillness is not your enemy. It is your beginning. When everything else falls away, what remains is space. Space to see clearly, space to breathe, space to just be. We spend most of our lives chasing success, love, approval, distraction, anything to avoid sitting still with ourselves. But when life breaks us, it takes away all those distractions. It removes the noise, and in that silence, something ancient begins to speak the voice within you. The quiet presence that has always been there, but was drowned out by the world. Stillness is not the absence of movement, it is the presence of awareness. It is the space where your thoughts slow down and your breath becomes your anchor. It's where you begin to notice things you've been running from: your fears, your regrets, your pain, but also your strength, your resilience, your wisdom. In that stillness, you're not doing anything, you're simply being, and being is enough. In Buddhist practice, stillness is where true transformation begins. Meditation is not just about closing your eyes, it's about opening your awareness. It's about watching your suffering rise and fall without trying to escape it. It's about realizing that the storm outside you doesn't have to shake the peace within you. The fall may feel like a failure, but it is actually a return to what matters, a return to now. You are not broken because you fell. You are breaking away from everything that was false, noisy, and untrue. And in the quiet that follows, you don't find nothing. You find everything. 5. You are not the pain you carry. When life breaks you, it doesn't just hurt, it changes the way you see yourself. You begin to believe that the pain is who you are, that your sadness is your identity, that your trauma defines your worth, that because you were hurt, you are somehow broken, damaged, or less than others. But this belief is not the truth. It is a shadow cast by the mind, not the light of awareness. In Buddhism, one of the most powerful teachings is this: you are not your thoughts, you are not your emotions, you are not your memories or your past. You are the awareness behind all of them. Just as the sky holds clouds, storms, and sunshine, but is never affected by them, your true self holds every experience, every feeling, and every thought without being defined by them. Yes, you have felt deep pain. Maybe you've been abandoned. Maybe you've faced betrayal, illness, rejection, or loss. That pain is real. It has left marks on your heart. But it is not your identity. It is something you've lived through, not something you are. Your suffering is a guest that entered your home, not the walls of the home itself, and just like any guest, it will not stay forever. The problem is that when pain lingers, the mind clings to it. It plays it over and over again like a broken song, whispering, "This is who you are now." And slowly, you start wearing your wounds like a name tag. But Buddhism invites you to take a step back and look at your pain from a different place, from the place of the witness, the place that observes without judgment, without clinging, without fear. When you meditate or sit in silence, you begin to see your pain as waves on the surface of the ocean. Some days the waves are wild and stormy, other days they are quiet and still, but beneath all of it the ocean remains vast and unshaken. That ocean is you, your awareness, your true nature. The waves are your emotions. They may be strong, but they are not you. They do not define the depth beneath. The moment you stop saying, "I am broken," and instead say, "I am experiencing pain, but I am not the pain," you take back your power. You create space between your soul and your suffering, and in that space, healing begins. Not because you force it, not because you fix it, but because you no longer let it own you. You start to treat yourself with more compassion. You begin to understand that the way you feel is not a reflection of your worth. It is just a moment passing through you. You begin to see that you can hold grief without becoming grief, that you can carry sadness without drowning in it, that you can feel fear without being ruled by it. And most importantly, you begin to remember something that your pain tried to make you forget, that deep down, beneath all the cracks and scars, you are still whole. You always were. You were never the storm. You were the sky holding it all. So the next time you feel broken, remind yourself gently, this is a feeling, not a fact. This is a moment, not a lifetime. The pain you carry is not who you are. It is what you've survived, and what you've survived has only made your light stronger. 6. Brokenness makes you more compassionate, not less whole. In the quiet aftermath of being broken, something unexpected begins to grow. Not bitterness, not weakness, but tenderness. You may not notice it at first, but as the dust settles and your heart begins to soften, you find yourself understanding pain in a new way. Not just your own, but the pain of others. The very suffering that once isolated you now opens a door to connection, to empathy, to something Buddhism holds as sacred compassion. We are often taught by the world to hide our broken parts, to mask our sorrow with smiles, to act like we're always okay, to move on quickly so no one sees our wounds. We're told that to be strong means to be untouched by pain, but Buddhist wisdom teaches the opposite. It teaches that real strength is not the absence of pain. It is the ability to sit with pain, to learn from it, and then to use it to help others heal. When you have truly suffered, when you've sat alone with your grief, when you've walked through long nights with a heart full of ache, you come out different. You begin to notice things. The quiet sadness in someone's eyes, the shake in someone's voice, the way a smile is forced when they're barely holding on. And instead of trying to fix them or give empty advice, you simply understand. That gentle recognition is the seed of true compassion. And compassion doesn't come from books or teachings alone. It rises from your own breaking, from the nights you thought you couldn't go on, but somehow did. It comes from the moments you felt unseen, yet still chose kindness. From your lived experience, raw, real, and unfiltered. In Buddhism, the Bodhisattva, an awakened being who chooses to remain to help others, carries this spirit. The Bodhisattva doesn't help because they are flawless. They help because they have suffered, awakened, and now wish to ease the suffering of others. They know the way because they've walked it, and that can be you too. Your brokenness is not your weakness, it is your strength. It does not make you less able to love. It makes your love more real, more present, more true. You stop needing to prove yourself. You stop judging the pain of others. You don't rush their healing or compare their struggles. You simply sit with them, heart open, without fear. This kind of presence is rare. It isn't loud. It isn't showy. It doesn't demand attention, yet it's unforgettable. Because when someone has been broken and has healed, they carry a quiet gentleness, a soft wisdom that doesn't seek to impress, only to understand. That is the beauty of compassion born from brokenness. It isn't pity, it isn't superiority, it is solidarity. It says, I've been there, I know the ache, and I'm here with you. So, if you've been hurt and fear your pain has made you less, remember this: your brokenness hasn't reduced you, it has expanded you. It has deepened your well of empathy. It has carved out space in your heart where others can rest. And that is a gift the world deeply needs. You don't need to be completely healed to be a light for others. You only need to stay soft, even after everything you've endured. And in that softness, in that quiet, steady kindness, you become someone who doesn't just survive suffering, but transforms it into peace. Not only for yourself, but for everyone who walks into your life. 7. The break was the awakening you never knew you needed. At first, the breaking feels like death, not the end of your body, but the slow unraveling of everything you thought you were. It feels like the loss of self, the collapse of meaning, the disappearance of a future you once thought was certain. You look around and nothing feels familiar. You try to move forward, but the path you once followed is gone. In that dark, confused space, it's easy to believe this is the end, that the breaking has ruined you, that life has taken more than it could ever return. But what if this is not destruction? What if it is a quiet beginning, A sacred unraveling meant not to close your story, but to open a new chapter born from truth. Buddhist wisdom reminds us that suffering is not a curse, but a doorway to awakening. The Buddha did not awaken in comfort. His path began with deep discontent and questions that pierced through illusion. He saw sickness, old age, and death, and for the first time realized that life's pleasures could not shield him from suffering. In that painful seeing, a deeper journey began, not outward, but inward. Your break is your version of that moment. When your heart breaks, when illusions fall apart, when everything seems to collapse, something ancient stirs inside you. The part of you buried beneath expectations, noise, and habit begins to rise. At first, it may not feel like awakening. It may feel like being lost. But what's really happening is the shedding of false layers, the release of roles you were never meant to play, of identities built to survive but not to truly live. The ego, rooted in control and attachment, resists the breaking. It grieves the loss of what once was. It pleads to return. But the soul, the quiet and timeless part of you, knows that going back would only mean falling back asleep. And so, life carries you forward, even if it has to guide you through pain. The lotus flower, sacred in Buddhism, blooms only in muddy waters. Its beauty exists not in spite of the mud, but because of it. Without the dark, heavy waters, there could be no rising. The mud feeds the roots. The darkness strengthens the stem, and slowly, from the lowest place, something extraordinary emerges, pure, open, untouched by the very waters it rose through. This is your awakening. It may not happen all at once. There will be days when pain returns, when doubts seem louder than truth. But little by little, something shifts. You start noticing the spaces between your thoughts. You begin to respond instead of react. You learn to appreciate the breath, the stillness, the present moment. And you realize that peace was never hidden in a perfect life. It has always lived in perfect presence. You begin to see that what you once chased, approval, control, status, security, was never the true answer. You begin to feel lighter, not because life is perfect, but because you've stopped carrying what was never yours to hold. The old self, built on fear, pleasing, and pretending, starts to fade. And in its place, a truer self appears, one unafraid to feel, unafraid to release, fully awake. You may not have chosen the breaking. You may still feel the ache of what was lost, but when you look closer, you'll see that what shattered was never the real you. It was only the shell that life gently yet painfully cracked open to reveal who you truly are. The awakening was hidden inside the falling apart, and now you see with new eyes. You walk with deeper steps. You speak with a softer voice, not from weakness, but from wisdom. You no longer cling to control. You no longer fear the unknown. You know now that everything can be taken, and still you will rise. You understand that even if life breaks you again, and it will, you need not fear, because breaking is not the end. It is a return to stillness, a return to presence, a return to the sacred truth within you that has always been there, waiting with quiet patience for you to awaken. And if you are still carrying the weight of what broke you, remember this: you are not broken beyond repair. You are not too far gone. You are not ruined. You are simply in the middle of something sacred, something that cannot be rushed, forced, or skipped. Healing is not a straight path. Awakening is not just one moment. And peace is not something you discover. It is something you return to, once the noise fades and only truth remains. Everything that life took, everything that crumbled, everything that ended was never meant to destroy you. It was meant to strip away the layers that were never truly yours. It was meant to humble the ego and soften the heart. It was meant to slow you down so you could finally hear, really hear, the quiet, wise voice within, the voice that has been whispering all along. You are not your pain. You are not your past. You are not your story. You are awareness. You are presence. You are the witness. And the very fact that you are still here, breathing through it all, is proof your story is not over. It is only now becoming real. Let the breaking open you. Let it guide you. Let it soften you. Most of all, let it lead you back to yourself. Not the self shaped by fear or the weight of expectations, but the true self that watches, forgives, and shines in silence. As the Buddha said, no one saves us but ourselves. No one can, and no one may. We ourselves must walk the path. And now you are walking it, gently, bravely, fully awake. May your journey be filled with stillness. May your heart grow lighter with each breath. And may your pain no longer be a prison, but a path. If this message touched your heart, share it with someone who is still healing. Someone who needs to remember that being broken is not the end. It is how the light gets in. Until next time, be gentle with your heart, sit with your soul, and walk softly through the world. You are healing, and that in itself is a miracle.